Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Sunday, September 17th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Notre Dame game is in 6 days. The game against Michigan in 69 days.
Nice.
Yes, it is Notre Dame week. Kevin Noon chiming in a little early. Notre Dame week. First, before we talk Notre Dame, we're going to talk a little bit about Ohio State, Western Kentucky. And boy, there was a lot to talk about. Buckeyes win 63-10. That was, the first two games of the season they didn't look like what you've sort of come to expect Ohio State football to look like against, like lesser opposition. This was the first time that you kind of went, oh yeah, it was like the Leo DiCaprio pointing at the screen meme. It was like, oh, hey, it's Ohio State football.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they were just able to really impose their will. I think more impressive to me was the fact that they were able to hold Western Kentucky to 10 points. I mean, yes, 63 points is fantastic, a couple of defensive touchdowns, getting contribution up and down the roster, all of that is very important. But being able to hold Western Kentucky to less than 300 total yards, 10 total points, an offense that returned quite possibly the best quarterback-receiver duo in the nation in terms of returners with Austin Reed and with Malachi Corley, to be able to do all of that, I think that answers more questions of, they're going to be the people who are going to dismiss. Well, 63 points against a group of 5 team, big deal. But I think when you sit there and you look at what Western Kentucky's numbers were and what they're going to be at over the course of this season, to hold Western to what you did, I think that's going to be very impressive. And I think is another indication that this defense is starting to be what it is that Ryan Day and Jim Knowles would like it to be.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at Austin Reed's numbers, 21-37, 207 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 57% completion percentage. They live in the 0 to 10 yards for the most part. So those are the whole point of their offense as, hey, these are easy short throws. You're going to complete 75% of them, keep those chains moving. When that 75 goes to 57, all of a sudden those chains stop moving. Malachi Corley, like you mentioned, 8 catches, 88 yards, but that's on 13 targets, only average 11 yards per catch. I mean, they didn't ever let Western Kentucky get loose. I kept waiting for the 14-play, 87-yard drive that chews up, in half of a quarter. They just keep it moving, and it never happened. The defense the coverage was good downfield. The pass rush, they only had 2 sacks, but the pass rush was so disruptive. They constantly had hands in throwing lanes. I think they had 6 passes deflected. One of them got deflected right at the line and got caught for a 3-yard loss. I mean, it was a very, very disruptive Ohio State defense.
Ohio State held Western Kentucky 3 of 16 on third down, and that's why we never saw that 14-play drive that you're talking about there, because Ohio State really was able to do a good job there. Western Kentucky did go for it on 4th down 6 times, converting 3 of them. We talked on an earlier show about Tyson Helton coming in. It's like, well, we didn't come in here to pussyfoot around. I mean, my words, not his. I think that was really important for what Ohio State was able to do. I mean, sure, there were going to be people that are going to be like, yeah, but you still weren't able to get them off the field as quickly as you'd like to. As I'm sitting there and I'm looking for time of possession, I mean, Western had 32-34, Ohio State 27-26. Still, I think, if we would sit there and pull up numbers of previous games, that feels a lot more in line with normality versus maybe what we saw in the first couple of games.
Yeah, and they had 15 first downs, but to 24 for Ohio State. And you got them off the field. It was 3 of 16 on third downs. They picked up 3 of those on 4th down, but they also had 3 4th downs they didn't pick up. So, if you want to say, okay, really they were 6 for 16 because they picked up 3 of them on 4th down. Okay, then you're adding 3 more turnovers to the line for Ohio State. And they did just fine in the turnover department too. They had 2 interceptions. Steele Chambers had one. Jermaine Matthews, the true freshman corner out of Cincinnati, he had a pick 6. They had another a forced fumble. Denzel Burke gets in there, puts his helmet on the ball, and Tyleek Williams, after an incredible rugby scrum in the end zone where it was like any of about 9 different guys looked like they were going to come out with it. Tyleek Williams comes out with it and looks like just about the happiest human being on earth.
Yeah, and let's not forget that there was another fumble in the game, too, that Ohio State wasn't able to fall on. So they were out there hitting. I mean, that Tyleek Williams that was a good moment there. I mean, seeing those defensive scores, I think that I saw on the telecast that it's the first time they've had 2 defensive scores in a game since 2018. So, I mean, a lot of people are probably still fixated on sack numbers. You talked about that, but it is about havoc. It is about being getting a guy uncomfortable. I don't think that Austin Reed really was all that comfortable back there with the pressure that was coming in. And sure, Ohio State was, a fingertip away 1 or 2 times. I mean, just couldn't get to him, but you're speeding him up, making him move the pocket. All of that stuff is very important.
Yeah, he looked very uncomfortable. There were just constantly hands in passing lanes. Was one where he was started going right and then was like a throwback to the left. But I think it was Jack Sawyer was right in his face, and he's throwing the ball on an angle, and he somehow completed it. But you're talking about him not looking comfortable. That did not look like a comfortable throw. That was not. He did not have time in the pocket. They didn't have time to run anything downfield for the most part. They were just kind of like getting the ball out and try and have a guy make someone miss in space. And Ohio State did a pretty good job getting guys to the ground. So, yeah, defensively, that was a very, very impressive performance. Tony and I talked towards the end of the week on one of the shows about, that we were sort of both expecting, 24, 21 points, something like that for Western Kentucky. And boy, if they held them under 14, we would be pretty impressed. Well, they held them under 14. So, and Western Kentucky was not playing it cautious. They were taking that extra swing with 4th down 6 times. He was going for it. He was playing really, really, really aggressively, and Ohio State still held him to 10 points. So, yeah, that was really impressive. Kyle McCord also pretty impressive in his first, officially. He was the starter before, but he was only the, lowercase starter. Now he's the all-caps starter. Right. Officially the starter. It's really his job. And he looked like a guy who has been, better every week. He was better from the from the first half to the second half of week 1, better week 2, better week 3. Just looks like a guy who is kind of taking on, okay, now this is my team, and now this is, now I'm going to start acting like it.
At the end of the first half, he had more touchdown passes than incompletions, and ended up finishing the day with 4 incompletions and 3 touchdowns. Urgency was gone a little bit in the second half. You're just trying to kind of, all right, let's just get through this. When are you bringing Devin in? It was one of those types of things. But, yeah, I think it's really important for him to have that success, especially going into Notre Dame, because he had the 2 weeks of the competition and leaving a lot of points on the field and a lot of, this thing just feels like they're, that they're driving with the parking brake on or something like that. So for them to come out and really connect, and he only threw 23 passes for what it was worth, and, still had 318 yards, 3 touchdowns, 83% completion percentage. All of that is going to be very important, because I think one of the things, and maybe to turn the page a little bit to Notre Dame, one of my big questions about Notre Dame is what its secondary is going to be. And you want to have a quarterback that's coming off of an 83% game, because, I think that it's going to be somebody that's going to trust his arm, is going to trust his decision-making, and he's going to feel a little freer to throw the ball.
Yeah, it feels like this is, this is the first real road test. No disrespect to Indiana, but also...
Sorry.
If you need me to explain the history of Indiana football as compared to the history of Notre Dame football, we can do that, but that's probably a separate show. This is going to be the first truly hostile crowd, prime time, national TV. We'll see whether it's 75-25 Notre Dame fans or 80-20 or 65-35, whatever the number is. It is going to be majority Notre Dame fans. They're going to be loud. They're going to have all day to get, to pregame and get ready. And this is a big game. This is a game where this could be a statement game for Ohio State. This could also be a statement game for Notre Dame. Notre Dame, Texas had their Texas is back game last week against Alabama. if Notre Dame can beat Ohio State, something they haven't done since the 1930s, this becomes, okay, maybe Notre Dame maybe this time really is different. Maybe this is not just so the Tyrone Willingham is 6-0 and therefore or Charlie Weiss is 6-0. Like, they've gotten back to a certain point. This is a chance to have a real statement game for Notre Dame. Going into a game like that, you want your quarterback to be, okay, I'm not scared. I'm not uncertain about my abilities. I know my receivers. I trust my receivers. I know my line. I trust my line. I know my running backs. I trust my running backs. I mean, it feels like this is the kind of game where you're going to go in and be a little bit more willing to just sort of let it all hang out next week.
I mean, a very important game, as you said. Both teams have the opportunity to make a statement. It's not going to hurt a conference race. It's not going to hurt Ohio State because it's in a Big Ten game. It's not going to hurt Notre Dame because they're not in a conference. So I think that it's a game where you're going to go out there and you're going to be throwing haymakers. And because there is so much upside for winning this game. It's something that will resonate very well in that room in Grapevine, Texas, when they start talking about the college football playoff, the last year of the 14 playoff. And having that type of win is going to be very important. And let's be honest, Ohio State's first 3 games, not necessarily national juggernauts. So to sit there and be able to have 3 games against teams, as of the moment we're recording this, that are in the top 10, all of that's very important. It starts with Notre Dame. And I think at that point, you really have a better idea of what this Ohio State team is. And then on the other side of the coin, for Notre Dame, plays largely an ACC schedule. Really the best game outside of the Ohio State game on its schedule, I guess, would probably be USC.
Yeah.
And so they need to make full advantage, because I'll tell you what, Boston College isn't going to get them across the line.
Yeah, if Notre Dame wants to make the college football playoff, they have to split the Ohio State and USC games. And if you don't do that, well, then the USC game becomes must-win. And I think that one is in LA this year. I don't remember for sure, but that USC is no walk in the park this year either. So, yeah, this is a big game that as Kevin said, you are going to be hearing about a bunch by the time we get to November. Whether we're talking about this as a quality win for Notre Dame or Ohio State, it's going to be one we're talking about a lot later in the year. But I think Ohio State fans may be going into Notre Dame week feeling a little bit better about things after a 63-10 win over Western Kentucky Saturday at the Horseshoe. Boy, I am already excited about that Notre Dame game. We talked about this a little bit on the post-game Buckeye Weekly, but we have already been talking about the Notre Dame game plan, because this is the kind of game that does not come around all the time, and you don't get a chance to go to this is one of the great venues in college football, and Ohio State has only played there once since the 30s. They played once in 35 or 36. They played there again in 1996, and then now next weekend. This is going to be a spectacle. It's also going to be, it's not just a helmet game. Like, this is a legit 2 really good teams going head to head with a whole heck of a lot on the line. So I don't know about you, but I'm kind of excited.
Yeah, I've been everywhere. I've seen games everywhere. I've not seen a game at Notre Dame. In the game in the 90s, I did not get to go to that game. I was working in Columbus, and I was too valuable to the operation to leave the studio. So
is that what they told you?
Yes. I know it was something, but this is going to be a really exciting game. It's going to be a great backdrop, great uniforms, great helmets. I mean, as part of a stellar weekend of games. But even with all the great games that are slated for week 4. Maybe a little biased here, but I think this is the game that's at the top of the pyramid.
Yeah, there are some great games on the schedule next week, but it's this is one where it's 2 teams this year who are great, but also 2 teams historically who are great, and 2 fight songs and bands and everything you could possibly want from college football. You are going to get it right between the eyes next Saturday night. So, boy, as we count down those days to that game, which might be kind of fun and exciting. A great place to do that would be at BuckeyeHuddle.com, where we have a fantastic team of insiders covering the Buckeyes, the team, covering the Buckeyes in terms of recruiting, covering X's and O's and scheme talk to make you a smarter football fan. I have a feeling we're going to be talking a little bit about all of that stuff this week as we count down the days to that Notre Dame game, 6 days away. So we will make sure you join us there at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Now that you know that the Ohio State 2023 football team might be okay, now it's probably safe to plunk down a few bucks, sign up for just give it a try. Try a monthly membership. See how you like it. See what all the good stuff behind the curtain there at BuckeyeHuddle.com, and make sure you also check us out on YouTube, YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Find all of our podcasts wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search Buckeye Huddle. You can get Buckeye Weekly. You can get Big Me Kickoff. You can get the Skull Session podcast. You can get Calculated Risk, which is the great new show from Tyler Shoemaker and Kelly Ford on kind of sports betting, but also just on sort of
college football by the numbers.
Yeah, it's a more analytical approach maybe to college football. And then the Daily Huddle as well with Garrett Seawright. I mean, lots of great coverage there. You want to hear a little national stuff, you want to hear a little Buckeye stuff, you want to hear recruiting, it's all there. Just search Buckeye Huddle wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to all of those. Leave us a 5-star rating and review if you would. We would appreciate that. That will help other folks find those shows as well. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.